You can't describe the feeling and being really inside of a monument that has just been discovered and is just literally emerging out of the ground.
The Colosseum has stood in the heart of Rome for nearly 2,000 years. It has survived wars, fires, earthquakes. But when Grok AI was asked to rebuild it digitally from the ground up, something unexpected happened. The structure it produced did not fully match the version taught in textbooks. Small differences appeared. Hidden passages aligned in strange ways. Angles pointed toward something no one had discussed before. So the question is simple. Was the Colosseum only an arena for games, or was it part of something much larger? For centuries, historians believed they understood the Colosseum. Built under Emperor Vespasian in 70 AD and completed by his son Titus, it was meant to entertain the Roman public. Gladiators fought there. Animals were hunted. Crowds cheered. Blood stained the sand. That is the official story. When Grok AI was fed every known blueprint, every archaeological scan, every laser measurement taken in the last 50 years, it began reconstructing the structure layer by layer. It did not rely on artistic drawings or guesses. It relied on geometry, data, math. The result was not dramatic at first glance. The oval shape remained. The towering arches stood strong. The underground chambers, known as the hypogeum, were placed beneath the arena floor as expected. But then researchers noticed something. The internal support corridors were slightly misaligned compared to popular 3D museum models. The AI reconstruction showed load-bearing paths that connected deeper than previously believed. Some corridors were not simply for moving gladiators and animals. They formed repeating patterns that looked intentional. Engineers reviewing the model saw precision in the angles. The alignment of certain outer gates pointed toward key locations in ancient Rome. Not randomly, not loosely, but with measurable accuracy. One corridor lined up with the Roman Forum, another with Palatine Hill, a third aligned with what was once the Temple of Jupiter. It raised quiet questions among experts. Was the Colosseum placed for convenience or for symbolic control? The Roman Empire understood power deeply. Architecture was not just about buildings. It was about message. When people entered the Colosseum, they walked through towering arches designed to make them feel small, insignificant, controlled. Grok's model showed that this psychological design may have extended further than we thought. The arena was built like a machine that guided movement, directed sound, managed crowd flow with near mathematical perfection. Even more surprising was the acoustic simulation. When Grok calculated how sound moved inside the reconstructed arena, it showed that a single amplified voice from the Imperial box could travel clearly across much of the structure without modern technology. That suggests something important. The emperor did not just watch the games. He controlled the emotional temperature of 50,000 people with his voice alone. This was not random construction. This was engineered influence. And that realization led researchers to ask a bigger question. If ancient Rome could design structures that shaped human emotion so precisely, what else were they capable of designing? The deeper researchers went into Grok's reconstruction, the more they realized something important. The AI was not trying to rewrite history. It was simply following data wherever it led. It had no bias, no pride, no desire to protect old ideas. It only saw numbers, angles, materials, and structural stress points. When Grok rebuilt the Colosseum, it began with physics. It calculated weight distribution across every arch. It tested stone density. It simulated how Roman concrete hardened over time. Then it compared those findings with excavation reports from the last century. And that is when small cracks appeared in long-held assumptions. Traditional models showed certain underground chambers as storage areas. Grok stress simulations suggested something different. Some walls were thicker than needed for simple storage. Some floors were reinforced beyond practical use for moving animals. It looked like over-engineering. Why would Roman builders add extra support to areas that did not require it? Engineers ran the model again. The results did not change. Those sections were built to handle vibration, heavy vibration. That discovery led to another simulation. What if large wooden platforms were raised and lowered repeatedly? What if mechanical systems operated under the arena with far more force than historians assumed? The hypogeum may not have been just a backstage area. It may have been a mechanical core. Grok mapped pulley points and possible lift shafts based on anchor holes in the stone. It calculated torque loads. It tested hypothetical machines using Roman engineering knowledge from other sites. The math worked. The Colosseum could have supported far more complex stage effects than previously believed. Now imagine this. 50,000 people sitting above a moving mechanical world. Floors rising. Animals appearing suddenly. Fighters emerging through hidden panels. Sound echoing perfectly through stone arches. It was theater, yes, but it was also system design. What surprised analysts even more was the crowd flow model. Grok simulated entry and exit times using known gate sizes. The numbers showed that the arena could be emptied in minutes if needed. That level of emergency planning is advanced even by modern standards. The Romans were not improvising. They were planning for control. This changes how we see the Colosseum. It was not only a place of entertainment. It was a controlled environment, a place where emotion, movement, and attention were engineered. And here is where geopolitics enters the story. When a state can gather tens of thousands of citizens into a single controlled space, direct their focus, shape their emotions, and release them safely, it holds enormous influence. The Colosseum may have been one of the earliest large-scale social control systems ever built. If this story is opening your eyes, consider subscribing, because what comes next goes even deeper into how architecture shapes power. The more Grok analyzed structural alignments and material stress points, the clearer one idea became. This was not just Roman pride carved in stone. It was strategy. And that raises a quiet but serious question. What exactly were they preparing for? When Grok finished a full structural model, researchers moved to something even more precise. They overlaid the AI reconstruction onto satellite data of modern Rome. They aligned it with ancient maps. They compared its axis to solar movement and seasonal changes. The results were not dramatic. They were subtle, but they were consistent. The main axis of the Colosseum tilts slightly off what many guidebooks claim. It is not perfectly aligned with a cardinal north-south line. Instead, Grok calculated a small shift, just a few degrees. But those few degrees point toward a location that once held deep political meaning. Palatine Hill. That hill was home to emperors. It was the center of imperial power. From certain angles, a viewer inside the Colosseum could see toward the Palatine Ridge framed by stone arches. It was not obvious. It was not loud. But it was there. That visual alignment would remind every visitor who truly ruled Rome. Then came the solar simulation. Grok ran seasonal light models. It tracked how sunlight entered the arches during solstices and equinoxes. On specific days of the year, beams of light would strike the arena floor in dramatic ways. Certain corridors would glow. The imperial box would be illuminated at precise moments in the afternoon. It may not have been religious, but it was symbolic. Ancient Rome understood symbolism deeply. Light was power. The sun was divine authority. If sunlight framed the emperor during major events, the message would be clear without a single word spoken. The AI also revealed something else. The outer structure of the Colosseum contains repeating ratios close to known Roman architectural formulas. But in several sections, those ratios shift slightly, not by accident. Engineers studied the variation. The deviations appear strongest in areas closest to the imperial entrance. Stone density is marginally higher. Arch curvature is adjusted by small degrees. These changes may have increased durability around elite access points. Protection built into design. This is not dramatic conspiracy. It is structural logic. When leaders invest resources, they protect what matters most. But the bigger revelation came from sound modeling. Grok simulated crowd noise at peak capacity. It mapped echo patterns. It calculated how chance would bounce between stone surfaces. What it found was remarkable. The arena dampened chaotic noise while amplifying focused sound from central points. In simple terms, the crowd could shout together and feel powerful. But isolated voices would fade quickly. Unity amplified. Dissent muted. Whether intentional or not, that is powerful design. Now imagine the effect over decades. Citizens gathering regularly, experiencing shared emotion, feeling united in spectacle, watching violence as entertainment while authority remained elevated and untouched above them. That is not just architecture. That is behavioral engineering. And if ancient Rome understood how to build emotional environments at this scale, what does that say about modern governments with far more advanced tools? If you are beginning to see how deeply structure shapes society, stay with this investigation. Because the next layer connects ancient stone to modern strategy. Grok did not set out to challenge history, but it may have quietly revealed how physical design becomes political power. And the implications stretch far beyond Rome. Why now? The Colosseum no longer looked like a simple arena. Under Grok's digital reconstruction, it began to look like a system built with purpose, a system that shaped how people moved, what they saw, what they heard, and even what they felt. The Romans did not leave written instructions explaining this. They did not need to. The evidence was in the structure itself. Grok's behavioral simulations showed something striking. When crowds entered through the 80 numbered arches, they were funneled into rising corridors that gradually narrowed before opening into the massive seating bowl. That physical transition created an emotional shift. The body moved from compression to expansion, from shadow into bright open space. Modern architects call this psychological staging. The Romans were already using it. When 50,000 citizens stepped into that arena, they experienced awe before the first event even began. The scale alone shaped emotion. Stone columns towered above them. The emperor sat elevated in a framed box. The seating hierarchy reflected social class clearly. Senators closest to the arena, common citizens higher, women and the poor in the upper tiers. Power was visible, structured, reinforced. Grok's structural stress tests revealed that the emperor's platform had additional support layers beneath it. Thicker foundations, stronger anchor points, not visible from above, but engineered into the core. Symbol and safety combined. But the deeper layer was this: repetition. The Colosseum hosted games for hundreds of years. Regular events, predictable gatherings, controlled excitement, controlled violence, controlled release. Crowds would enter angry or divided. They would leave exhausted, but unified in shared spectacle. This is not speculation. It is how mass psychology works. Shared focus reduces internal conflict. External spectacle creates group bonding. Modern stadiums operate the same way. The difference is scale of intent. Ancient Rome ruled vast territories, diverse cultures, different languages. Keeping unity required more than armies. It required narrative, shared experience, visible dominance. The Colosseum was not random entertainment. It was state theater. And here is where the geopolitical connection becomes clear. When Grok's data team compared the Colosseum's design principles with later imperial architecture across Europe, patterns emerged. Large gathering spaces, elevated authority positions, controlled acoustics, managed crowd flow, symbolic light alignment. The blueprint of power repeated across centuries. Even in modern capitals, massive government buildings use scale and symmetry to project control. Parades move through planned routes. National events are staged in carefully designed spaces. Architecture is never neutral. If this investigation has held your attention so far, consider staying connected. Because what we are uncovering is not just about ancient Rome. It is about how power hides in plain sight. The Colosseum may have been one of the earliest large-scale emotional machines, but it was not the last. And what Grok revealed next moves from ancient stone into something far more modern. When Grok's full reconstruction report circulated among academic circles, it did not cause panic. It caused silence. No one was shocked that Rome understood architecture. No one denied that empires use spectacle. But what made experts uneasy was something deeper. The AI did not simply recreate a building. It showed how physical design can quietly shape public behavior at massive scale. It proved, through math and simulation, that emotional control can be built into stone. And once that idea becomes clear, it cannot be unseen. Modern governments operate in far more advanced environments. They have data, algorithms, surveillance systems, behavioral analytics, social media modeling. If ancient engineers could design an arena that guided sound, light, and crowd movement with such precision, what could modern systems accomplish with digital tools? That is the quiet tension behind this discovery. Researchers began comparing Grok's Colosseum findings with present-day megastructures, national stadiums, parliamentary buildings, global event venues, financial district layouts. The patterns were not identical, but the principles were familiar. Scale creates awe. Elevation signals authority. Sound design shapes perception. Flow control prevents chaos. These are not secrets. Architects openly discuss them. But when an AI reconstructs an ancient example with measurable behavioral outcomes, the discussion changes. It moves from theory to proof. Some policy analysts worry about what this means in an age of artificial intelligence. If AI can analyze how a 2,000-year-old arena influenced human emotion, it can also help design future spaces to maximize influence. And that extends beyond buildings. Digital platforms are spaces too. Algorithms decide what millions see, what trends rise, what fades. Attention is guided. Emotion is triggered. Unity is amplified. Dissent can be buried under noise. Sound familiar? The Colosseum amplified collective voice while isolating individual noise. Modern networks sometimes do the same. This does not mean there is a hidden master plan. It means systems evolve. Power studies what works, and effective designs tend to repeat. Grok did not accuse anyone. It did not speculate. It only revealed structure. But structure tells a story that stretches from Roman emperors sitting in sunlit boxes to modern leaders standing before massive digital audiences. If this series has shifted how you see public spaces and public systems, make sure you are following closely. Because the final layer of this investigation looks forward, not backward. The Colosseum still stands in Rome today. Tourists walk its corridors. They take photos. They admire the engineering. Most see history. But after this reconstruction, some experts see something else. They see the first blueprint of controlled mass experience. And the final question remains. If we can now measure how ancient architecture shaped human behavior, who is measuring ours? Title equals Grok AI was asked to reconstruct the Colosseum. What it reveals changes everything.